Why doesn't the media tell us about this though? What's going on? Why don't I know this information? Well, you see, this is the reason that we're doing these lectures. It's being covered up to a certain extent that we now have to come and expose the deceptions that the Bible speaks about. These are words spoken by Our Lady of La Salette to Melanie Calvat. This is in 1846. This is a fully approved Catholic Church apparition. The words state the following, from the Catholic source: Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. Another Roman Catholic source, which is The Last Days of the Catholic Church, page 3. This is by a conservative Roman Catholic scholar, W.F. Strogi. He writes, I scoff at the notion that anyone other than the Pope could be the Antichrist. We've identified that the Antichrist is the papacy, the false system of worship that he heads up. Now, it is critical to understand how this Antichrist power will deceive the world on behalf of Satan. And that's why I've entitled this lecture, The Seat of the Dragon. Because in Revelation 13, verse 2, it states the following. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard, and its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. Now listen to the wording. And to it, that's the Antichrist beast, the dragon gave his power and his throne and his great authority. Here we have a reference to the Antichrist beast, and we have a reference to the dragon. Now, just as I did in the previous lectures, I'm going to ask you again, who's the dragon? Well, I can't tell you who the dragon is. The Bible has to tell us who the dragon is. Let's look at Revelation 12, verses 7 to 9. There was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. And that great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan. Another reference in Revelation 20, verse 2 says, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan. Here the Bible points out to us that the dragon is Satan. Now, there was a war in heaven between Michael and Satan. Michael means, just like the word Jacob meant the deceiver, and his name was changed to Israel, the man who fought with or wrestled with God and overcame, the overcomer. The name Michael means he who is what God is. So there's a war in heaven between he who is what God is and the dragon who is Satan. The dragon loses the opportunity or the option to be part of the heavenly kingdom, falls out onto this earth, and that war which happened in heaven continues today on this earth. The problem is, as we said yesterday, not too many people are willing to worship Satan. If you were to walk into your living room as a cloven-footed gargoyle with a pitchfork, a tail, and blowing smoke and fire, you wouldn't bow down to him, would you? Well, if the war in heaven was about worship, because he said, I will be like the Most High, I want that worship for myself, well, that war continues today on earth. And if we're not going to bow down to him openly, well, then he's going to have to trick us into doing something that we might previously not have planned to do. And that's why in Matthew 24, verses 4 and 5, it reads, when the disciples came to him and asked Jesus, tell us what will be the sign of thy coming? Jesus says, take heed that no man deceive you. The Catholic National in July 1895 said, the Pope is not only the representative of Jesus Christ, but he is Jesus Christ himself hidden under the veil of flesh. We have in Revelation 13 verse 2, the Antichrist power receiving his power, his throne, and his great authority from the dragon. That's why this lecture is called The Seat of the Dragon, because the dragon, Satan, cannot do this work on the earth by himself or on his own. He gives his power to a human being, and he says, you will deceive the world on my behalf. So what we need to look for in this lecture is a link between the Antichrist beast and the dragon. if our lecture that we did yesterday was true, not only will we be able to find a link between the two, but we'll be able to find the constructs of this link between the Antichrist power and the dragon. Revelation 13 verse 3 to 4 reads as follows. And all the world wondered after the beast. How much of the world? All the world wondered after the beast. Now listen to these sad words. And they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast. Stop there for a moment. This is a prophetic statement. All the world, every single country around the world, worshipped or wondered after the beast. So this Antichrist power at a certain point in time will transfix humanity, that all the world will wonder after him. Oh, and by doing that, it continues, the worship that we give the papacy or the Antichrist beast is actually being channeled through to Satan. So in reverse, where Satan gives the papacy his power, his throne, and his great authority, he does so that he can receive worship. So by acknowledging the papacy and by following what he says we must do, we are actually channeling worship through to Satan. So how is Satan going to deceive mankind into worshipping him? Well, let's go back to the core element that we discussed yesterday. You'll remember that in the lecture called Who is God, we looked into the sanctuary. And we saw that every element of the sanctuary, from the single entrance through to the laver of washing, through to the lamb, the high priest, every single element had a reason for being there. Where the one entrance into the sanctuary represented or pointed towards Jesus Christ as the only way to salvation. The lamb pointed towards Jesus being the lamb offering on our behalf. The high priest pointed to Jesus Christ being the high priest in heaven. The laver of washing pointing towards baptism into Jesus Christ, etc., etc. The entire sanctuary in the Old Testament is fulfilled in Jesus Christ in the New Testament. The sanctuary is a depiction for the people in the Old Testament of the gospel that we have today. Not only does it depict the New Testament gospel, but it also points towards a heavenly sanctuary. You'll remember we looked at Hebrews 4 verse 14 that spoke about Jesus as the high priest that is passed into heavens, Jesus the Son of God. This is explained further in Hebrews 8 verses 1 and 2. The paraphrase that we put together says that we have such a high priest in heaven, a minister of the sanctuary, which is the true tabernacle which the Lord pitched and not man.